This is the remarkable story of a 40-year-old man who hunted down an alleged paedophile who he claims sexually assaulted him as a 17-year-old schoolboy.
Mr. Buck, do you want to say anything?
There is something I witnessed the year I left high school. It's been more than 20 years now since I promised myself to forget it forever. And in many ways, I did forget. Until now, I'm Deon Wiggett, and this is my only story.
Wiggett took over a year to hunt down his alleged sexual predator Willem Breitenbach, a 55-year-old teacher and media executive, which led to his arrest in Reebok in December last year.
Mr. Breitenbach, do you want to say anything?
Deon Wiggett is an award-winning copywriter in Johannesburg. His podcast, My Only Story, The Hunt for a Serial Pedophile, has enthralled audiences and it became one of the most downloaded podcasts in South Africa.
But memories are also chain reactions. One thought leads to another. It's like you can't remember one thing without remembering something else first.
The story begins with the death of his father 3 years ago. This was the catalyst that revived a trauma he was trying so hard to forget.
If my father's death was a seismic blow, it was followed by weeks and months of aftershocks as the bottom fell out of my life and my youth.
Deon, what was it about your father's passing that triggered the memories?
If you asked me in 2016 whether I had ever met a paedophile, I would have said, no, not to my knowledge. My brain put it somewhere until I could actually cope with it. It's sometimes called dissociative traumatic amnesia. And I suddenly wondered what Willem Breitenbach has been up to.
Wiggett worked on his school newspaper in Stellenbosch, and Breitenbach, who was working at the Burger newspaper, came to his school to encourage young journalists.
He's attentive and smart and lets me in on newspaper secrets and takes me under his wing. Willem Breitenbach became my hero.
Unbeknownst to him, he claims Breitenbach had a seduction plan and invited Wiggett to come look at old newspapers at his flat one morning, and then found that he was being shown pornographic photos.
The last picture he passed to me, he ran his finger down my hand as I was taking the picture from him. And I froze. It was a considerable realization for me when I acknowledged my abuse that fight or flight is only 2/3 of the equation. Fight, flight, freeze is really what it is. You think that it is your fault that this very large journalist is having sex with you as a matric boy. And just the shame of having had sex with him. I mean, I just lay there. And I effectively remained frozen until the very beginning of 2018, a few months after my father died.
This unassuming loft is Wiggett's control center. It is from here that through social media he was able to find and track down the digital footprint of the man who sexually assaulted him. Wiggett started an extensive search and followed the crumbs of evidence he had left behind. He found Breitenbach on social media, usually posing with a bevy of young men. But it was not an easy journey for Wiggett.
In the beginning, the process was terrifically hard for me. Just seeing his picture freaked me out and made me feel all of those same experiences all over again. Today, he's in his 50s and lives in a picture-pretty Cape Town neighborhood with views of Table Mountain and the Atlantic Ocean. There's plenty he's done in the 20-plus years since he's been a teacher, but we'll get there.
The alleged perpetrator is out there living their best life. How did you deal with that injustice?
I made a podcast because I realized early on that if I go to the police on my own and say this happened to me, it would be my word against his. Because these people operate in patterns, I knew that I had to find boys who went through similar experiences so that a critical mass of us say, well, the same happened to me too. But what matters more right now is what he told me back in the 90s, that he used to teach at one of South Africa's most famous schools.
Deon's investigation led him to Grey College. It's well known for the many Springboks that it has produced, as well as excellent academic results. Deon went undercover to Bloemfontein and in their library found school photos that Breitenbach was in. He then set about tracing boys who knew him.
For months, Grey College looked to me like Fortress Grey, but now cracks are appearing. One of the men from Grey College has responded to my message. one of the boys I tracked down from a yearbook picture.
A boy, Wiggett calls Ben to protect his identity, remembers him. Initially, Breitenbach's name was changed to Jimmy in the podcast as Wiggett sought corroborating evidence before naming him.
On the bitterly cold night that Ben is telling me about, it's the night that Ben walked into Jimmy's room and caught him in bed with a 15-year-old classmate.
When you met some of these survivors, how did you feel?
The first survivor I met of Breitenbach is a guy I call Ben. And to then find this one guy who is saying me too transformed the experience for me, because I knew at that moment that the hypothesis does hold. I am onto something, I just need to keep on searching.
Ben wasn't the only one at Grey College. Breitenbach also allegedly had his way with a boy called Joshua. Deon, who do you blame?
I blame Willem Breitenbach. He is the one to whom the shame goes. That being said, there have been many opportunities over the years for Breitenbach to be stopped in his tracks. On the 10th of August 1990, he so-called molested a boy in Breitenbach's room at Grey College. This boy phoned his mother the very next morning, and she got in a car along with her husband. They told the school what happened, and the school insisted it would never happen again. They will deal with this. They will make a plan.
We contacted Grey College, and the current headmaster responded with this written statement, saying he was appointed in 2013 and had no knowledge of what happened at the school 30 years ago. We suggested to the school that because Breitenbach was not investigated at the time, he was able to have access to other boys which he abused. The school responded. If this is indeed the case, it is truly a shame and a crime. Grey College Secondary condemns all forms of sexual harassment, abuse and brutality against people, especially women and children. The school will cooperate fully to see justice served. After Breitenbach's sudden departure from Grey College, he then got another teaching job, 600 kilometers away at Willowmore High School, where he'd be exposed to even more boys. He only stayed there for 2 years before he moved on to Langenhoven High School in Riversdale, where he was appointed the hostel father. That is where Henry Freeman was allegedly sexually molested by him. We offered the school a right of reply, and they suggested we contact the Department of Education. If you could please just take us back to the day that you first heard Deon's podcasts.
I drew the lines. You know, I opened my news app and it was newsman, previously teacher, and I just knew it. That's when it hit me.
Like Wiggett, Freeman also worked on his school's newspaper and was befriended by Breitenbach. He was invited to watch a movie very early one morning in his teacher's bedroom when Breitenbach allegedly molested him. Did you tell anyone that this happened to you?
Not at the time, no, not at all. I was scared. Why would a standard 9, 17-year-old boy be so stupid to go and find himself there? But it happened, and who should I have told? You know, I suppose I could have gone to the school. I don't know. My parents. What would my dad have done?
News 24 co-published Wiggett's podcast in November last year, and it quickly gained traction.
Hallo, Willem.
Yes. Ek respekteer my. Ek respekteer, ek kan ongelukkig nie praat.
Dankie, Willem. Baie.
It is Sunday, 17 November 2019, and I land in Cape Town. I am here to meet 2 more survivors of Willem and to lay charges against Willem for offences in 1997. By selectively searching for a year, I could find more than 50 survivors. Now, are saying, we are coming for you, Willem Breitenbach.
Willem Breitenbach was arrested on the 5th of December 2019. He is out on bail and is due back in court later this month. Breitenbach's lawyer politely declined our request for an interview. Wiggett has written a book about his quest for justice, also titled My Only Story. And how do you feel now when you've seen him arrested and in handcuffs?
I think I can now live in peace that I know now that he has now stopped. There won't be any more victims ever again.
He won't be bothering us anymore, and I find peace in that. Now that I've learned how to face my demon and hit back and take back the power that was never used to take, It really is incredibly liberating to, at the age of 40, get to be the Deon Wiggett I have always wanted to be.